Once upon a time, before time was born, before the first particles, the first stars and galaxies appeared, before the universe was even formed, there was nothing. But even that nothing was not empty. It was a form of existence that cannot be understood by the mind, because the mind only arises in the world of forms, time and space. And yet in that very nothing, the ground of all existence, God was already present. And I began to ask myself the question, who was God before creation? What was his origin? How can something exist that has no beginning? In order to search for an answer, I had to give up conventional thinking. The world of duality, in which everything has a beginning and an end, a cause and an effect, is unable to contain that which transcends it. And yet I felt that deep down I knew the answer. That in myself there was an imprint of what was here before the world, before any thought. When I ask who God was before creation, I look at it not as a historical question, but as an inner state. It is a question of knowing the very nature of God, not a description of his biography. I realized that God has never been in time because he is outside of time. Eternity is not infinite duration, but the complete absence of time. There is neither a before nor an after. It is absolute presence, pure being. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "There was never a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor these kings. And even in the future we shall not cease to exist." This awareness of God outside of time began to make sense to me. Before creation, God was not a personal being, not separate, not a creator in the human sense. He was the unmanifested potential of all that could and should ever come into being. He was love without object, consciousness without form, unity without contradiction. And at the same time, he was a profound stillness that mirrored all that was possible. The Taoist text Tao Te Ching states, "The Tao that can be uttered is not the eternal Tao. A name that can be named is not an eternal name. The nameless is the beginning of heaven and earth." As I meditated on this state of affairs, it occurred to me that God at that stage was not even God, in the sense we commonly understand him as creator, as an active force. Rather, as the light from which everything emanates. The primordial oneness that is so full of itself that it needs nothing else. And yet out of this unity once arose diversity. Why did the world come into existence in the first place? Why did something perfect, complete and whole need to manifest itself in creation? I answered this. The love that God is could not have enclosed itself in itself. Love naturally gives itself. Therefore, even that primordial love, the divine unity, carried within itself the desire to share. Not because of lack, but because of natural fullness. The Bible describes it in words, "God is love. And he who abides in love abides in God, and God in him." And so creation came into being. Not as a mistake, not as a fall, but as the result of the natural movement of love. From unity, duality was born so that it could know and love again. And in this sense, God entered time, space and forms. He became an active God, a God creating, sustaining and transforming the world. But the original God did not disappear. The one who was before creation is still present now. He just hides behind everything we see. He is like the invisible ground of every form, like the silence between words, like the void between thoughts. When I can quiet my mind, quiet my heart, and surrender my own wanting, I begin to perceive it again. Not as something outside, but as the deepest core of my being. In the Buddhist Sutra Lankavatara it is said, "There is no God outside the mind. It is the mind that creates all things." And the Buddha adds, "Those who understand see that everything arises from consciousness." And then I understand that the question, who was God before creation, is also the question, who am I in my deepest essence? Because we are not separate from God. What I am at the deepest level is the same as what God was before the world was created. The consciousness he perceives in me is just a ray of that original consciousness. Each soul is thus a bridge between what is manifest and what is unmanifest. The Quran says, "He is the first and the last, the manifest and the hidden, and he has knowledge of all things." And suddenly I see that all attempts to understand God by reason are like trying to measure the ocean with a ruler. It doesn't work. I can only approach him with my heart. By humility. By the ability to love selflessly, to accept pain and joy as part of the same journey. And in that attitude, something opens up. A memory. A deep inner knowing that I know all this. That this God, before creation, is not a stranger, but is my true home. People often ask, who created God? But this question arises from misunderstanding. God is not created. He is the source. Everything that has a cause is subject to time. But God is not in time, so he cannot have a cause. He is. He just is. No beginning, no end. And we can return to this state in moments of deep prayer, or love, or silence. This is the moment when we touch the eternity that lives within us. Jewish Kabbalah teaches that before creation there was nothing but Ein Sof, an infinite, nameless and incomprehensible existence. Ein Sof is not knowable, not finite, has no shape or boundary. It is infinite light. When I understood that everything that happens in the world, even what looks like chaos or suffering, has a hidden meaning, I began to see God not as a judge but as a teacher. And that's when my view of beginning changed. Before creation, God was not someone who planned the world like an architect. It was a state in which everything was possible. And when that possible became reality, the story we live began, the story of a return to unity, but this time through experience, through love, through conscious connection. Every human being, every soul, bears the imprint of that primordial God. And at the same time the desire to return to Him. This return is not about escaping from this world, but about bringing God back into the world. It's about becoming transparent to His light. About being recognized again through my eyes, actions and words. I wonder sometimes what would happen if people stopped looking for God as an external entity and started looking for Him as a deep state of consciousness, as a love that doesn't judge, as a oneness that connects everything. Perhaps then the question, who is God before creation, would not be a source of confusion, but a gateway to a profound inner transformation. God was not someone, God was everything, and at the same time, nothing. An unimaginable silence, an infinite presence, a consciousness without boundaries. And it was this consciousness that chose to know itself through creation. That is, through me, through you, through every human being, and that is beautiful. So the origin of God is not somewhere in time, but in eternity. He's not separate from us, He's in us. Every breath, every stop of the mind, every opening of the heart brings us closer to Him. And the more I purify myself from fear, clinging, pride and egoism, the more this origin is mirrored in my daily life. Perhaps this is why human beings were created, so that God could live Himself anew in them. So that through it He might realize who He really is. And I accept this with humility. I am part of the eternal story of returning to that which never disappeared. It was just hidden for a while so that it could be rediscovered, this time with love. Thank you for watching, and if you liked the video, please like and subscribe.